Hello and welcome to round two of the Delphi survey for the COrSIcA study. I'm Dr. David Finch, project lead for the study. In this video, I cover instructions for completing round two of the Delphi survey. In round one, you completed a consent form, answered some questions about yourself, and participated in the main survey. In the survey, you rated various effects of treatment for the condition anal high-grade squamous intraepithelial lesion, or anal HSIL, based on how important you considered each for inclusion in a core outcome set. These effects of treatments are referred to as outcomes in the survey. In round two, we focus on rescoring each of the outcomes that you rated in round one, but this time with feedback for each outcome. I'll now show you a screenshot from the round two survey to demonstrate this feedback. So feedback includes a reminder of how you scored the outcome in round one, circled in red, along with two graphs, one showing the range of scores given for the outcome by the group of healthcare professionals, those represented by the red bars in the graphs, and the other showing the range of scores for the patient group, those represented by blue bars in the graphs. In this example for the outcome fatigue, in round one, this particular participant scored the outcome as a 2 in terms of its importance for inclusion in a core outcome set for future late-phase anal HL treatment trials. From the healthcare professional's perspective, scores ranged from 1 to 9, with the most commonly chosen score being 6, selected by 19% of healthcare professionals. From the patient perspective, scores also range from 1 to 9, with the most commonly chosen score being 5, selected by 20% of participants. The spread of scores across the entire scale in each group indicates that this outcome is likely of lesser importance to both groups for inclusion in the core outcome set. In contrast, if we now look at the outcome progression to anal cancer, what we see here is a strong signal of importance for inclusion in a core outcome set across both groups, with high percentage of participants in each group rating the outcome as of critical importance. In round two, for each outcome, we ask that you reflect on your own score, as well as the scores from each group of participants, and then decide whether to stick with your original rating or change it. For each outcome, when considering the feedback, look out for the spread of scores and the percentages of participants choosing each score as indicators for the importance of each outcome, and compare these across both participant groups for an insight into how important the outcome is to each group. There's no pressure to change your rating if you don't want to. It's perfectly fine to stick with your original rating, even if it differs from the rest of the group. Scoring of outcomes is unchanged. As in round one, score each outcome on a scale of 1 to 9, where 1 indicates not important at all for inclusion in a core outcome set, and 9 indicates absolute critical importance. Note that outcomes scored 1 to 3 are considered not important for inclusion in a core outcome set, those scored 4 to 6 are considered important, and those scored 7 to 9 are considered critically important. Please remember that you're not determining every outcome to be measured in all future treatment trials for anal HSIL. Instead, you're helping to determine the outcomes that are the most important to measure in future trials that are designed to determine whether one treatment is better and/or is safer than another. Outcomes deemed most important by a predetermined majority of study participants will be included in the core outcome set. This core outcome set will then be available for researchers to use in future treatment trials. Researchers using the core outcome set are not restricted to measuring only the outcomes included in the core outcome set. They're free to add any additional outcomes they wish to those included in the core outcome set. This ensures that outcomes not deemed important enough to be included in the core outcome set, or other outcomes such as those that might be of importance to a specific treatment or group of participants, for example, can still be measured in future trials. You will notice that there are 6 additional outcomes to rate. At the end of the round 1 survey, participants were invited to suggest any additional outcomes not covered in round 1. Several suggestions were made, and those identified as additional outcomes have been included at the end of the round two survey for their importance to be determined. No graphs are associated with these outcomes as they've not been scored previously. Please rate their importance as you have for all other outcomes included in the survey. A point to reinforce that emerge from the suggestions of additional outcomes is the distinction between the what and the how of core outcome set development. When a core outcome set is being developed, the first phase of its development is to determine what outcomes are to be included in the core outcome set. Once we know what outcomes are to be included, the next phase involves deciding how best to define and measure these outcomes. Several suggestions for additional outcomes fell into the how for core outcome set development. For example, for the outcome disease response to treatment, additional outcomes suggested included those relating to the method of disease assessment, for example, whether that be by clinical examination, or more specifically with or without high-resolution anoscopy, by tissue biopsy or by swab cytology, the timing of the assessment, and whether the assessment of response should relate to a specific treated lesion or the disease as a whole. A further study will be undertaken to determine how each outcome included in the COrSIcA core outcome set is defined and measured. This concludes video 1. Please proceed on to video 2.